which mean the common masses, among the common masses, that this is sufficient and one may understand the purport of all the Vedas just by reading it by themselves. So, but is it true? The answer is no. It is not possible for one to just read the whole Vedas and understand everything about the Vedic literature, understand the essence of and the goal of what this Vedic literature is telling us. So, therefore, in the Mahabharata, which is Adi Parva 1.267, and the Manu Samhita, it is written Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Saupa Brahmayet. That means one must complement one's study of the Vedas with Itihasas and Puranas. So if one is just trying to understand the purport of the Vedas by themselves, they will get misled very easily. Why? Because they tend to interpret it in various ways. Because the Vedas are generally very cryptic, they are very concise, very cryptic, concise meaning. So, therefore, in the course of interpreting it, one may get lost and never understand what the Vedas are actually telling. So, therefore, we have the Itihasas and the Puranas that elaborate. They elaborate and throw more light on what exactly these Vedic scriptures are trying to tell us. So therefore, it is written Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Saupa Brahmayet. And why is the section called as Puranas? We know we have 18 Puranas at least, and there are many Upa Puranas. But why is it called as Puranas? The reason is because Puranas make the Vedic literature complete. It makes the four Vedas complete. Puranat Purnam iti Chanyatra. This is the meaning of Purana. Purana is that which makes the Vedas Purnam, which makes the Vedas complete. So therefore it is called as Puranas. Because the statements of the Vedas are somewhat ambiguous, it's very hard to understand what they are intending to tell us. Even if one reads the Vedanta Sutras, which is actually aphorisms, it's like the final thesis statement of the four Vedas that is written by Vyasadeva. Even if one just reads the aphorisms by themselves, even then they will not understand without relevant commentaries and support from the Puranas and Itihasas. So, therefore, without the support of the Puranas and Itihasas, there is going to be a lot of confusion. Nobody will understand anything clearly. Now, among these Puranas, there is one particular Purana which is extremely glorious and it is celebrated as Amala Purana, not only in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but throughout the rest of the Puranas as well. So, generally, when we have competitors, the competitors wouldn't glorify us unnecessarily unless we are really good, right? So the competitor of Srimad Bhagavatam is the remaining 17 Puranas and the Upapuranas. But all these competitors are constantly glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like we have statements in the Skanda Purana and the Padma Purana and the Garuda Purana. Everywhere the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam is being sung. In fact, in the Padma Purana, there is a full section just dedicated to the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Many stories related to it and many beautiful, beautiful verses describing the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, we have in Puranas like the Skanda and the Garuda Purana and so on. So the rest of them are also glorifying this particular Purana, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there is a fantastic statement. This is there in the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 12, 13, 8, that talks about the real nature of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious? What's so special about this Purana? So it says, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yat Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsayam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Param Giyate तत्र ज्ञान विराग भक्ति सहितं नैष्कर्म्यमाविष्कृतं तच्छृण्वन् सुपठन् विचारण परो भक्त्या विमुच्येन्नर. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It's Amala Purana. It is the most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. This Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work together with the process of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Anyone who seriously tries to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. So, this is the ultimate statement towards the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the Srimad Bhagavatam all about? What is its real nature? So therefore, we have our acharyas like Srila Jiva Goswami, the six Goswamis, and the further acharyas who have written beautiful, beautiful glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, Srila Jiva Goswami has composed what is known as a Tattva Sandarbha, where he has shown how Srimad Bhagavatam stands out independently. We saw that the Vedas are dependent on the Puranas and the Itihasas. But whereas Srimad Bhagavatam can by itself stand independently, it has everything in it. One may not even read the other sections of the Vedic literature. And if one just reads this one literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one will get the complete understanding of everything he needs to know, and the Supreme Lord will be revealed to him. So that is the speciality of this particular scripture that we are delving into. So, how does the Srimad Bhagavatam begin? It begins with a very, very, very beautiful three verses, very, very key verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is almost considered as a concise version of the entire scripture, these first three verses. So, the very first verse defines the absolute truth because, after all, by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, one should get an understanding of the absolute truth. Who is the absolute truth and what is his nature? Right? That's the first thing we must know. So we all must understand who we are, why are we here, who is God, what is my relationship with God. That is the meaning of human life, right? Atatho Brahma Jijnasa. This is the first statement of the Vedanta Sutras as well. So as after one has read these Vedas and the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, one must not stop with that because there is no point staying in this universe again and again and again, taking repeated birth again and again. So, therefore, the Vedanta Sutras they tell, okay, you've read all this is good, but then inquire unto the Supreme. Tato Brahma Jijnasa. You have taken a human birth, take association of devotees, inquire unto the Supreme. So, that is the very first statement. So similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, it sets off with that ultimate statement. It just sets off by defining the absolute truth. Who is the absolute truth? What is his nature? How he is Swarat, how he is the cause of all causes, and who is he? He is Vasudeva Krishna. So that is he is Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. That's how the first statement begins. Okay. So, after defining the absolute truth, the next verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the nature of true dharma and what Srimad Bhagavatam's purpose is. What is Bhagavatam propounding? What is the message of the Bhagavatam, right? So we know, okay, Bhagavatam is going to talk about the absolute truth, but what is the nature of the Bhagavatam? How is it presenting the absolute truth? Right? That is seen in the second verse. Dharma projita kaitava. That's how the verse begins. That means what? It says that there are so many dharmas that is being mentioned throughout the entire Vedic literature. So some people say, do good and you will reap good. Some people say, okay, do pious activities and everything will be good with you. Like that, so many scriptures giving so many ideas. Some say, okay, worship demigods, get all your boons satisfied, like that. And then some say, no, aim towards liberation, just get liberated out of the cycle of birth and death, and that is good. So, like that, when you read so many Vedic literatures, you get different ideas, very, very different ideas. So, is this all the real dharma? What is true dharma? Okay, and what is cheating dharma? What is real religion? What is cheating religion? And why we should take up the real religion? So Srimad Bhagavatam presents itself. It says, now here, I am here to give you what is the meaning of real religion. I'm going to kick out all these cheating religions and I will give you the essence of real religion. And by understanding this scripture that is written by Vyasadeva, the Lord will immediately be established in the heart. One will get a complete understanding of who the Lord is, and the Lord will become present in the heart. And one will develop pure devotional service. So that is the intention, or that is the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is firmly established in the second verse. Okay, and then the third verse is an invitation to everybody to come and relish the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nigamakalpataror ghalitam phalam shukamukada amritadrava samhitam. That means the Srimad Bhagavatam is a ripened fruit. Just like you have a mango, and when the mango is half ripe, it's not all that tasty. The best way to relish a mango is when it is fully ripe, really, really juicy. The best of the mangoes are in India. So the juiciest mango in India, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that too, because it is already picked and tasted by the mouth of Shukadeva Goswami, it has become even more relishable. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing his pastimes, once the devotees were all very hungry, all his associates were very hungry, so he created a mango tree which gave fruits without peel and a seed. Because the peel and the seed of the mango fruit is not something that is relishable or edible. So just imagine a fruit that doesn't have a seed and that doesn't have a peel, and it's a mango fruit. How relishable it would be. It would just be juice, just nectar, right? So like that, here is an invitation to the Srimad Bhagavatam in the third verse, and the invitation calls on to all the listeners, saying, "Come and drink it. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. Come and drink this juice." So it's very much like that fruit that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to the devotees. No peel, no seed, just juice. If you just crush it, it will be dripping with juice, like that. So Srimad Bhagavatam is like that. There is no waste material at all in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Every word, every verse, every section, every paragraph, every chapter is just dripping with nectar. That's why Srila Prabhupada said, if you just read one word, one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, your life will become perfect. This is what Srila Prabhupada says. So that is the power of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, like this, in the first three verses, the Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana is established through the Srimad Bhagavatam. And once Srimad Bhagavatam talks about these introductory verses, they get into the subject matter. What is the first subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam? The first subject matter is the 6 questions of the sages of Naimisaranya, and that is what we are going to see. So it starts off with the fourth verse itself. Okay, so after seeing the first 3 verses, immediately in the fourth verse, we jump into the story of the meeting of this great sage by the name Suta Goswami with all the sages who were assembled in Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So this meeting is being described. The verse 114 goes like this. नैमिषे अनिमिषे क्षेत्रे ऋषयः शौनकादय सत्रं स्वर्गाय लोकाय सहस्र समम् आसत. Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimisharanya, great sages headed by the sage Shaunaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. So it was a point in time when the Kali Yuga had just set in. So when the Kali Yuga set in, thousands of sages they got on to this place called as Naimisharanya, which is a forest, and it is called as Animishe Kshetre. That means it is in glorification of the Supreme Lord whose eyelids never blink. Okay, so this forest itself is the Supreme Lord. Actually, technically, the forest is a representation of the Supreme Lord. Naimisharanya is a very important place in this universe, and it is very, very potent, very potent. Not only that, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada he quotes Vayavya Tantra, and he says the glories of this place called as Naimisharanya. Brahma, he actually contemplated a universal wheel when he was creating. And the hub of that wheel is actually the forest Naimisharanya. So it's pretty much the center point or the focal point of the entire universe. That is how Vaidya Tantra describes the glory of Naimisharanya. And then he also quotes Varaha Purana. Varaha Purana says that if anyone wanted to curtail the demoniac forces, they would choose to perform sacrifices in Naimisharanya. Because if one performed any pious activity, any ritual, any sacrifice in Naimisharanya, the power was so good, so high, very, very highly potent. Okay, and all the demoniac forces would be curtailed, and the spiritual people would be enriched. So therefore people would always choose this Naimisharanya to perform their sacrifices, and the Lord would be immediately pleased, because ultimately if the Lord is pleased, then everything is in place, right? So therefore they would choose this particular forest to perform sacrifices. So thousands of sages got together and they began to perform a very, very, very long sacrifice. The sacrifice went on for thousands of years. And what were they trying to do? They were trying to please the Lord so that the evil forces of Kali Yuga could get mitigated. That was the goal. So that's why they were performing this Satrayaga, thousands of years of sacrifice. And their face was all covered with soot because of the continuous fire sacrifices that they were performing, and they were very tired because they were not seeing any result from this huge sacrifice that they were performing. So they went on, and then what happened? As they were doing the sacrifice for some time, they saw a great saint by the name Suta Goswami who came by in that place. So when they saw Suta Goswami, they welcomed Suta Goswami and they immediately gave him the seat of honor. So they had many questions in their mind. They were thinking, oh, the Kali Yuga has started, we have been performing sacrifices, but we don't see that the evil effects of Kali Yuga are getting mitigated. We have so many questions. Krishna has left this planet, and we don't know how Dharma is going to be sustained. So they were very worried, and they had many, many questions that they wanted to ask. So when they saw this great saint by the name Suta Goswami enter the arena, they were extremely happy. They welcomed him, and then they gave him the seat of honor, and they decided that he should be the one who's going to enlighten all of them. So why Suta Goswami? When there were so many sages, like we saw Shaunaka and his followers, and so many others, so many sages from all over the world had come. But then why specifically Suta Goswami? Why did they choose him? So the reasons are also given in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The reason they chose Suta Goswami is because he was completely free from all vices. And what does free from all vices mean? Meaning he was free of sinful activities. We all know the four regulator principles that we are supposed to follow when we take up to the path of devotional service. So these four regulator principles are extremely important because it makes us free from sinful activities and helps us, or it is like a it helps us sustain a good character eventually. And unless we are in the mood of goodness and we are able to have a decent character, we won't be able to take up devotional service properly. The steadiness of devotional service and the real one may not be able to seek the essence of our practices if we do not have a good backing, right? So the good backing comes from these four regulative principles. And Sutta Goswami was free from all vices. He was free from intoxication and illicit sex, and free from gambling and meat eating and all these different vices. Not that is just that is not enough for one to become an acharya. Okay, for one to take the seat of honor and become an acharya, just being free of vices is not enough. One should also be well versed in all the scriptures that are famous for religious life and the Puranas and history. So, what are they telling here? A person must be very well read in all the scriptures. One doesn't have to be a dry scholar, that is not the point. One doesn't have to be a dry scholar, but one should know what is the essence of all the Vedic literatures. And one should even know the other literatures. Like, for example, there are six. There are different schools of thought. Okay, you can call them the schools of thought. Like it's called as the Shat Darshana or the six Darshanas. You have yoga, Vaiseshika, and then Nyaya. Like that, there are different schools of thought besides the Vedanta, which is theistic. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that a person who calls himself an acharya should know the Shaddarshanas also. Why? Why should he know some dry philosophical speculations? He should know that because he should know to defeat it. So therefore, an acharya should be well versed with everything, so that when someone has challenging him, why Srimad-Bhagavatam, why Bhakti is the essence of all scriptures, he should be able to answer it. So therefore, a person must be well versed in all the literatures. They must understand what the literatures are talking about, and he should be able to give the masses proper guidance. Okay, the people, the sages, they saw that Sutta Goswami had all these qualities. Not only that, he was the eldest and the very well learned Vedantist. He was a very senior personality. He was very well learned, and he directly got the knowledge from his guru, who was Vyasadeva. It is Vyasadeva who has composed all these Vedic literatures, right? So imagine being a direct disciple of Vyasadeva, and knowing all these literatures, and
Maybe some internet issues are there. Yeah. Yeah, Mataji will connect back in a minute. Please wait.
Hare Krishna, I got disconnected. I to try to speak from the phone so that we can have some connection for a while. So sorry. You can hear me now?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So yeah, now the connection is getting reestablished. So I just thought I'll 1 second. I don't know. We are supposed to be in the Bay Area, but the Bay Area has the maximum connection issues all the time. Okay, I joined in. This meeting is being recorded. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me, man?
Mataji, you can hear.
You can hear me. So we were seeing why Sutta Goswami, and we saw the different qualities of Srila Sutta Goswami. He was free from all vices. He was well learned in all the scriptures. He was a disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, and he was a very submissive disciple. And all his spiritual masters had bestowed asked by the sages of Naimisaranya. So, like this, when Suta Goswami he sat on the Vyasa sun, he was given this invitation ask him 6 questions. And these 6 questions are recorded in the very first chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The entire first chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam is nothing but the 6 questions that the sages ask. So here is the list of the 6 questions. What is the ultimate benefit take his birth from Devaki, describe the wonderful deeds of the Lord when he assumed the forms of Brahma, Rudra, and so on for the purpose of creating, maintaining, and destroying the universe, fully describe the activities of Lord Hari's incarnations within this universe, where has religion taken shelter after Krishna has retired to his own abode. So these are the different 6 questions that the sages of Naimisharanya started asking one by one. So when Sutta Goswami was asked, so a speaker gets very happy when important questions are being asked so that the speaker can enlighten the audience. He can share whatever he has learned. So therefore, Sutta Goswami was extremely happy hearing these questions. And he began offering different prayers to his spiritual master Vyasadeva, to Shukadeva Goswami, and so on. And in these prayers that he begins to offer in the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is where we find this very famous prayer that we chant before the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudhirayet. So that is where actually we pick this verse from. This is one of the prayers that Sutta Goswami offers to Narayana, Naranarayana, Saraswati Devi, and others before he can begin chanting the Srimad Bhagavatam. So before that itself, he offers his prayers to Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who's the original speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that comes a little later in the Srimad Bhagavatam. First, the conversation between the sages and Sutta Goswami is described, and later, when Sutta Goswami really begins answering the questions, that time he quotes the conversation that happened between Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami. So therefore, ahead of time itself, he the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he offers his prayers and he congratulates all these sages for asking the perfect questions. This was the question of the hour, right? It was so important at this point in time when the age of Kali had just begun. So therefore, it was the most important questions, and he was very happy to hear these questions. And he said he would begin answering these questions. So 6 questions, and these answers, technically, if you see, these answers are spread throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, because after all, Srimad Bhagavatam has to be answers to these different questions, right? So it is spread throughout the Bhagavatam, which is correct. But then Srila Jiva Goswami, he explains that within the first few chapters itself, these answers have already come. So the first chapter is the questions, and he says within chapter 2 and 3 itself, Sutta Goswami gives all the answers. But then there are further questions, and then slowly the Bhagavatam builds up. So therefore, Jiva Goswami has commented that out of these 6 questions, 4 are answered in chapter 2 and 2 are answered in chapter 3. Okay, and we are going to get into these questions in more detail, understand what the question means and how the answers are given through these chapters and in other places. So that is the goal of today's session. So the first question, this question is given in the verse 1.1.9. What is the absolute truth and ultimate good for people in general? Ultimate Shreya. What is the greatest good for everyone? So, how did Sutta Goswami answer this question? He first described the beauty of devotional service to Lord Krishna, which is actually the essence of all scriptures. And then Sutta Goswami, he explained to the sages that the ultimate benefit of all the people in general is to become free from all the material bondage that we have in, develop love for God through devotional service, and this devotional service should be offered only to Krishna and his plenary parts. So, in the beginning itself, when we started talking about Srimad Bhagavatam, we said Srimad Bhagavatam in the second verse said Dharma Projita Kaitava. That means Srimad Bhagavatam is kicking out all cheating religions. Right? So, any religion that encourages you to stay back in this material world and continue the cycle of samsara, Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't support. So when the sages had asked, "What is the ultimate good?" Ultimate good is not to, make ourselves more and more comfortable here. The ultimate good is to become free from all this material bondage. Is it enough if we become free from all material bondage and just get liberated from the cycle of birth and death? Is that enough? No. Srimad Bhagavatam gives something much better than liberation. It says one must develop love for God. That is the ultimate goal of life, to develop love for God. How do we develop love for God? We develop love for God through performing devotional service. And devotional service to whom? Devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna or his plenary parts. And especially the glories of Sri Krishna and love of God through Krishna Bhakti is actually the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why Canto 10 is called as Samambonam, because specifically it talks about the glories of Sri Krishna and devotional service to Sri Krishna. The essence of the entire 10th canto is actually the love and devotion of the gopis of Vrindavan. So that is the topmost. Actually, Srimad Bhagavatam has this hidden. It's giving us the topmost essence of all the scriptures, which is love of God, following in the footsteps of the gopis. So, this question was answered in Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, verses 6, 7, up till verse 27. But what we will do is we'll throw special focus on 6, 7, and 27 and see how this question was answered by Sutta Goswami. What is the absolute and ultimate good? Now, question 2 also we are going to see in parallel because they are related. When Sutta Goswami is giving the answer for question 1, he kind of includes question two's answer also because they are so closely related. So we will see question 2 also. Question 2 is quoted in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:111. What is the essence of all scriptures? What is the ultimate good? What is the essence of all scriptures? So I think you can make out that they are connected. So throughout the second chapter, and especially in the similar verses 12, 6, 7 up till 28, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he is confirmed as the only object of worship. And establishing our lost relationship with Krishna through devotional service is actually the sum and substance of all Vedic literatures. So they are connected. The ultimate good is to establish devotional service. And what is the essence of all scriptures? To establish devotional service to Krishna. So therefore, question 1 and 2 are interconnected, and the answers will also flow in a similar way. They are all connected. So answers to question 1 and 2. I said we'll see 3 verses, 6, 7, and then 27. So let's look at 1 to 6, which is so popular, such a popular verse. Anytime we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam and its glories, we immediately pick 1 to 6. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki aprahitatha yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So again, we have spoken about the Vedic literatures and we said there are so many methods prescribed. So we have the Pravriti Marga and the Nivriti Marga. Pravriti marga is just, sense enjoyment, staying back in the material world, getting your desires fulfilled, and the cycle goes on and on. So Vedic literatures, they talk about the Pravriti marga. You have desires, okay, satisfy your desires, be happy, do this, do that, do this karma kanda, do that, do this, like that. There are many recommendations. So the Pravriti marga is also encouraged in the Vedic literatures. And then we have the Nivriti marga. Nivriti marg means what? We give up these, we begin to renounce these unnecessary desires and we focus on the ultimate good, which is actually liberation. So that is called as Nivriti marg. So we have Pravriti marg and Nivriti marg, and both are extensively described in Vedic literatures. But then these are all dharma, right? These all fall under dharma. But what is parodharma? What is the highest of all dharmas? Dharma means what first? Dharma means that which sustains itself is called as dharma. Hmm? That is actually called as dharma. We are all individual souls, okay, and we are all dependent on the Lord. What is our actual constitutional nature? Our constitutional nature is to always be in the service of the Lord. That is our eternal nature. Dharma, another meaning is eternal nature. Eternal nature, that which sustains itself. So our eternal nature is to be in the service of the Lord, to be the servant of the Lord. So therefore, activities through which we can engage in the service of the Lord is parodharma. And what is parodharma in one word? It is devotional service. So until we are engaging in bhakti or devotional service, we are not practicing parodharma. So therefore, in this verse, the definition of parodharma is given. The supreme occupation, parodharma, the supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Devotional service, bhakti can be applied only to Krishna, and we have seen that also in the previous verses. So, therefore, dharma, parodharma is devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. And what? How should it be? It should be unmotivated and uninterrupted and completely satisfying to the self. One should not have any external agenda when one is performing devotional service, and devotional service should be done continuously without breaks. That's why when they talk about reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is said Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, without a break. Every day you should read Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, like that, devotional service must be performed in all our daily activities at a regular basis, and it should be unmotivated without anything else. Just to please Krishna, we perform devotional service. So, that was verse number 6. And further, the verse is also answered in a couple of other verses. So, we have verse number 7 that says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahitukyam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. That is the result of performing devotional service. This is the ultimate good, and this is the essence of all scriptures. And Prabhupada, in the purport, he says the bhakti cult is meant for the realization of a positive form. So when we say devotional service, we cannot have devotional service towards something that is vague, some sort of a light. Nobody can do devotional service to an impersonal aspect, right? So therefore, bhakti means it should be done towards a positive form, towards a person. That is one thing. And bhakti is always positive. And when one is engaged in something very positive, all the negative things will be automatically eliminated. So, as one performs bhakti, one becomes detached from inferior things. Just like Bhagavad Gita, it talks about developing a higher taste. When you develop a higher taste, the propensity to engage in lower things automatically gets negated. It automatically goes away. Just like kids, in India, they're trained to drink milk. And sometimes, certain kids in some families, they are told to drink milk without sugar. In some families, sugar is mixed with hot milk and given to the child. Okay, if supposing the child is not trained to take milk with sugar, yeah, he's drinking milk without sugar from day one, And suddenly one day a different person in the family comes and mixes sugar in the milk and gives it to him, and he tastes that sugar filled milk, and he begins to like it so much. You think he will go back to the practice of drinking milk without sugar? It can never happen, because that is a lower taste. So once he is used to drinking milk with sugar, it is very hard for him to drink milk without sugar. So I remember my nephew when he was very young. He has always been used to drinking milk with sugar, but once by mistake I gave him milk without sugar, and he refused to drink it. He said, "No, I will not drink it." So therefore, once you are engaged in a higher taste, the lower propensities, they are so they are so useless. You don't feel like engaging in them. So, like that, by acting in devotional service, and if one has developed that love for God, taste for devotional service, then the lower propensities are automatically gone, and therefore detachment becomes very easy. So, it's easier to detach in the process. Verses 28 and 29, they kind of answer this question completely. And again, very famous verse. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Maka, Vasudeva para Jnanam, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Tapa, Vasudeva paro dharmo, Vasudeva paragatihi. What's the ultimate good and what is the essence of all Vedic literature? So you get the answer here. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is the supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life. So, like that, so the Goswami, he gives very crystal clear answers to the first two questions asked by the sages of Naimisharanya. Now, what's the next question? The third question asked by the sages is, tell why Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared in the womb of Devaki. Why did he have to come and take birth amidst us? Right? He's in the spiritual world. He can remain happy there, and with the flick of his finger, he can liberate everyone. Why does he have to come and perform pastimes? Why does he have to take birth through the womb of a woman? Why does he have to appear through Devaki? So, what is the reason for all this? And the answer is given in 1 234. This is in the second chapter itself. The answer is to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. That is the exact answer why Krishna comes to this material world. Also, the question is further answered in the 8th chapter in Queen Kunti's prayers, which are very beautiful, and also in the 10th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, when really Krishna makes his appearance. When Krishna makes his appearance, before actually, when Yashoda and Nanda, they ask for boons in their previous life as Drona and Dhara, that time this answer is given why Krishna has to take birth to come to this material world. So, like this, throughout the Bhagavatam, you'll find answers, but specifically, we look through certain verses that really throw light on this matter. So, let's see the answer in chapter 2. Okay. भावयति एष सत्त्वेन लोकान् वै लोकभावनः लीलावतारानुरतो देवत्रियन्नरादिषु. Thus, the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the role of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. So, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we have two verses, right? Yada yada hi dharmasya and paritranaya sadhunam. Very famous verses. So these two verses, they talk about why the Lord actually comes to this material world. At least three reasons are given. One is to establish dharma, he comes. Then he comes to eliminate the demoniac people, and he comes to give pleasure to his devotees. So these three reasons are given. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam elaborates a little more on it. It just elaborates a little more on how he comes and gives pleasure to the devotees, what he does with the devotees. So, in this verse, it first says that he comes here to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. He gives them pleasure and he wants to reclaim these loving devotees of himself, and the devotees who are so dedicated in his service. He wants to come and reclaim them. And in the prayers of Queen Kunti gives a little more elaboration. She says, Bhavesmin भवेस्मिन् क्लिश्यमाणानाम् अविद्याकामकर्मभिः श्रवणस्मरणानर्हाणि करिष्यन्निति केचन. Yet others say that you appeared for the sake of rejuvenating the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned soul suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. So Queen Kunti is telling that you come and you re-establish the Parodharma. Actually, what is Parodharma? Devotional service. How do we perform devotional service? By Shravanam and Kirtanam. So you come and you rejuvenate devotional service by spreading Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. You come and do it. Like for example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came just to propagate the Harinam Sankirtan. So therefore, he came to rejuvenate this hearing and chanting. He gave us the Mahamantra and he came to rejuvenate this. So that is the reason of the Lord coming from time to time, so that everyone can engage in this process of Shravanam Kirtanam and they can perfect their lives and take advantage of this process and gain liberation ultimately. And the 10th canto, when Drona and Dara were performing austerities and they requested the Lord to descend, what did they ask? There's a very beautiful boon. Who would ask this boon, right? They have always, Drona and Dara are considered very special because they asked for the perfect boons. When Devaki and Vasudev, in their previous life, when they asked for boons, they asked for the Lord to come and be born as their child. But when Yashoda and Nanda, when they performed austerities as Drona and Dara previously, what is the boon that they asked? They asked, please permit us to be born on the planet Earth so that after our appearance, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the supreme control and master of all planets, will also appear and do what? And spread devotional service, which is the ultimate goal of life. Why? So that those born in the material world may be very easily delivered from the miserable condition of materialistic life by accepting this devotional service. So that was their mood. They wanted the benefit for everyone. They wanted everyone to be benefited. And that's why they requested the Lord to descend. And that's why the Lord specifically wanted to show his childhood pastimes to this couple. So Yashoda and Nanda are very, very fortunate. They are much more fortunate than Devaki and Vasudeva. Devaki and Vasudeva desired the Lord to be born as their child, which is very wonderful. But here we have Yashoda and Nanda who wanted for the benefit of everyone. Let everyone get liberated. Let everyone see your childhood pastimes, and let everyone's heart get cleansed, and let them all be situated in love of God. So that was their desire, and that's why the Lord actually descended to spread devotional service by just witnessing his pastimes, just by seeing Krishna, by witnessing Krishna, one develops love for God. So that was their intention. Tato bhaktir bhagavati putri bhuti janardane dampatyor nitaram asid gopa gopi shubharata. Thereafter, O Parikshit Maharaj, best of the Bharatas, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead became the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they maintained continuous, unswerving devotional love in parental affection. And in their association, all the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, the Gopas and Gopis, developed the culture of Krishna Bhakti. So this was their aim, and they were successful in that. And Krishna was so happy to be present there as their son, so that this process of devotional service can be spread. And following in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, today we are all encouraged to take up devotional service. So that is the reason for Krishna's descent. The next question, question number 4. by the sages to Suta Goswami. What was question 4? This is recorded in verse 1117. Describe the activities of the incarnations of the Lord. So the Lord's incarnations, they are described in the whole of chapter 3. We know the famous verse uh, that is called as the Paribhasha Sutra of the Srimad-Bhagavatam is 1328. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam ete chansakala pumshaha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indriyadi Vakulam Loke Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. This is seen in the third chapter of the first canto. So before this grand statement was made, at least 24 incarnations of the Lord were explained. So, chapter 3. And the pastimes of these different incarnations are explained throughout the remainder of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, it is not that, after chapter 3, everything stops. After chapter 3, they are elaborated more and more. Every incarnation, their pastimes and whatever happened during that age is all described in grand detail. And it's not just 24. In the same chapter, it is mentioned that the Lord's incarnations are like the waves of the ocean, they are never ending. So there are several incarnations. 24 are mentioned here. And in the later cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, like for example, in the 11th and the 12th canto, you find more incarnations coming up. Like you have incarnations like Hayagriva and Hamsa and so on that are being mentioned and scattered throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are multiple incarnations.
Mataji, you got muted. Sorry.
Sorry. And yeah, this is a picture of chapter 3 pretty much, because chapter 3 gives us an essence of all the different incarnations that came, and chapter 3 begins with the Purusha avatars. Actually, that is one of the questions that the sages ask. How does the Lord create, maintain and annihilate this universe? And that is when the Purusha incarnations and the Guna avatars are being described. After describing the Purusha avatars and the Guna avatars, the Leela incarnations are described. Okay, we'll see more what Purusha incarnation means, what Gunavatara means, and what Leela incarnations mean. But here is a picture of the different incarnations that is described in chapter 3. So throughout chapter 3, the topic is just describing the names and in brief what they did. That is all is there in chapter 3. Question 5. Tell us the acts of the Lord tell us of the acts of the Lord that he performs in relationship to creating the material world. So this is specifically to do with the Purusha incarnations. Okay, how he actually maintains, creates, and how he does creation activities. And if you see the Srimad Bhagavatam, cantos 3 and 4, specifically, they relate to secondary creation. But however, in the second chapter, between 30 to 33 itself, it begins to describe how the Supreme Lord begins to create this material substance and how he takes the three different Purusha incarnations and he comes to this universe and he gets things started. The beginning of chapter 3 and the end of chapter 2 of the first canto talks about the Purusha incarnations or about the matter of creation, how the Lord creates this material universe. Then the remainder of chapter 3 is all the Leela incarnations, which is pastime incarnations, how the Lord comes and performs different pastimes in different times in different forms, and how he reclaims all the living entities. So in one sense, this question 5 and question 4 are related, you can say. They are all about the incarnations of the Lord. Okay. So let's see specifically this question about the Purusha incarnations. Here, between verses 30 to 33, this answer is given. So, Sutta Goswami, he said, in the beginning of creation, when the Lord wanted to create, okay, just imagine, actually everything is cyclic and there is no question of beginning or end, it's all eternally happening. But then this is just for our understanding. You can see in the beginning of one of the cycles, you can imagine like that. In the beginning of creation, the Lord created everything through his own energy, through Atma Maya. That is the word used. Through his own energy, he begins creation. He desires, I want to create. So he creates through his own energy. The Supreme Lord, he expands. He desires with his eternal consort He begins to consort with her, or he begins pastimes with her, and then he begins creation. He begins creation and he comes inside the creation and he maintains everything and he controls everything through the modes of material nature. He is the one who comes and enters and takes care of everything. He creates, he also participates. But how does he participate in everything? Does he get very involved in the participation? No. He doesn't get very involved in the participation. He is not affected by the modes of material nature. He is not like us. He never gets conditioned. He always remains transcendental and yet he participates in everything. How? Just like how fire permeates wood. So you have wood, okay? Fire is present inside. Can you see fire inside wood? You cannot see. But then if you apply some friction, you agitate the wood, you apply friction, you have two irony pieces of wood and you keep rubbing them, fire is produced suddenly. Where did the fire come from? Fire is latently present inside. It is not obviously present. So like that, the Lord is, he permeates everything, but he doesn't get too involved. He remains always aloof. Bhagavad Gita also talks about it. The Lord is present everywhere in every single atom, in the heart of every living entity, everywhere. Nothing is animate without the presence of the Lord. Okay, nothing in the universe is even possible without the presence of the Lord. But his presence is not in a way that we are present in this material world, getting so entangled. He never gets entangled. He's the absolute. He's one without a second. And just like how fire permeates wood, he appears in so many different varieties. He's present as the super soul in our heart. And this example is given just like how two birds are sitting on the branch of a tree. The Jiva and the super soul, that is the Atma and the Paramatma, both of them are living close by. And what is the duty of this Paramatma? The duty of this Paramatma is to be a witness and a sanctioner to the activities of the spirit soul, to be a witness and a sanctioner to the different activities of the spirit soul. And therefore, he is independent and he's sanctioning everything, but we are insignificant. Without the sanction of the Lord, even our desires are not fulfilled. Okay, we may have multiple desires, but we are so dependent that even for our desires to be fulfilled, we have to look up to the sanctioner. The sanctioner will fulfill our desires. But the Paramatma's intention is to somehow reclaim the soul. So he's waiting that someday the soul will look at the other bird, will look at the Paramatma and get interested in the Paramatma and then understand who he is, understand the his relationship with the Lord, and then get out of the cycle of birth and death. So therefore, Krishna is very compassionate that he comes and accompanies us everywhere we go, so that someday we look up at him. Someday the Atma will look at the Paramatma and understand his relationship. Whether we are born as a cockroach or whether we are born as a dog or a fly or a porcupine or whatever, or as a human being, he's always there with us. He's present in every single atom. He's present within our heart to reclaim us. So that is the nature of the Lord, and that's how he takes care of creation. He creates and he also he's also personal. He comes everywhere, but he doesn't get too involved. So that is his role. And the process of creation is briefly described. This is where the Purusha avatars are described. The Purusha avatars, what do we mean by Purusha avatars? Purusha avatars are actually the three Vishnus. The three Vishnus are the Karanodakashayi Vishnu or the Mahavishnu, the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and the Shirodakashayi Vishnu. So through these three Vishnus, the process of creation actually takes place. Actually, the Lord creates, maintains, and annihilates by himself. And he also engages his gunavatars. Like, for example, he engages Brahma in secondary creation. He engages Rudra in the final destruction. But ultimately, it's carried out by the Lord through his three Purushavatars. So this is the actual answer to that question. And who are these? What do they do? So first we have Mahavishnu. Okay, he's also known as Karanodakashayi Vishnu. Karana means he's responsible for, he's the Karana for everything. He is responsible for creation. So from his body, from the bodily pores of Mahavishnu, several universes emanate. So you see this picture how Mahavishnu is sleeping here in the causal ocean, and from his bodily pores, as he exhales. So just like how we inhale and exhale, there is some activity, right? We inhale and we exhale. What at the max, maybe we might be inhaling some microorganisms and we exhale some microorganisms. But the Lord, when he exhales through the pores of his body, instead of sweat being produced for people like us, the Lord produces universes from his body. Okay. And when he inhales all the universes within his body. So, like that, he begins creation while he's consorting with his internal energy, Rama Devi. Okay, he consorts with his internal energy because you see in that verse, if you read the Bhagavatam very scrutinizingly, you can understand that the Lord says that with my own internal energy, I begin the process of creation. That is very true. Though the material creation is under the subjugation of the external energy, because of his consorting with his internal energy, only creation begins. Okay, so he begins creation like that, and he himself expands and he gets into every universe. He has to get into, ultimately, he will get into every atom and every living entity also. But first, he enters every universe that he creates, and he comes as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And who's Garbhodakashayi Vishnu? He goes and he lies down in the Garbhodak ocean, and from his navel sprouts a lotus on top of which Brahma, who's the engineer or the secondary creator, appears. And from Brahma's intellect and the blueprint that he receives from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, he begins creation. He creates the 14 planetary systems and he presents bodies to the different living entities that are present in the navel of Mahavishnu. Actually, Mahavishnu holds everyone and then he disperses them. And then Brahma gives different bodies and different universes are created and different living entities come into existence. He doesn't stop there. Now he has created so many living entities. So who's going to accompany all of them? For that also, he expands as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. You see this picture here. He's present in the ocean of milk. He's very accessible. In fact, the demigods, from time to time, they go to the Shirodak ocean and they go and offer prayers, Purusha Shukta prayers, and they request the Lord to come and incarnate in various planetary systems. So he's very approachable. Of course, they go and stand in the ocean and they call out to him. He hears their prayers and then he uh, gives them the boons and then he comes and he participates in different leelas. So here, this Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, not only is he present here in the Kshira ocean or the ocean of milk, but he comes within the heart of every living entity. He's spread within every atom and he helps us through this journey. So, like this, the Lord, he takes care of the process of creation through his three different expansions or three different forms: the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and the Mahavishnu or the Karanodakashayi Vishnu. So that is how the creation process takes place. And the Leela incarnations we already discussed. I think we saw that slide of the Leela incarnations. So that was the other question. How does he come as the Leela avatars? He comes through various forms in various species and he tries to reclaim all the living entities by exhibiting his pastimes. By exhibiting his pastimes, we automatically get attracted and we want to serve him and we develop devotional service. Especially among the Leela incarnations, Narasimha, Rama, and Krishna are considered extremely important because their pastimes are very attractive. And the pinnacle of all these Leela avatars, he is actually Swayam Bhagavan. He is the source of everything. That is Lord Sri Krishna, especially Vrajendra Nandan Krishna, Krishna in Vrindavan. So that is actually the ultimate focus of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The glories of Vrajendra Nandan Krishna is the ultimate focus of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The final question, question 6. This is recorded in 1:123. Where have religious principles gone after Krishna's disappearance from this planet? Krishna has left this planet. We cannot see him. You spoke about Leela incarnations, you spoke about Purusha avatars, but we are not there here to see the Leela incarnations. Krishna is gone now. He's not there anymore in this world. Kali Yuga has set in. So where have religious principles gone? How can we develop that parodharma? How can we go back to Godhead at this point in time? Very crucial question, right? Very, very crucial question by the sages. So they have a valid point. They have asked all this, and now they are telling, you have given us answers, but what about this? Now, what do we do? So at that time, Sutta Goswami, he answered this question in 1343. Very, very famous verse. कृष्णे स्वधामोपगते धर्मज्ञानादिभिः सह कलौ नष्टदृशां येष पुराणार्को अधुनोदितः. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall take light from this Purana. So after Krishna has disappeared from this world, there is the hope for all of us. The answer is that the hope is there in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Krishna and Srimad-Bhagavatam are non-different. Because Krishna has left us, it doesn't mean that we, all the eternal religious principles are lost and we cannot develop devotional service. We have the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is non-different from Krishna. So there is the person Bhagavata and there is the book Bhagavata. Both are very potent. The person Bhagavata, he is there to give us guidance. So by seeing the person Bhagavata and following in his footsteps, one can develop love of God. And then we have the book Bhagavata. What is the book Bhagavata? The Bhagavatam is nothing but the glorious pastimes of the Lord. So by hearing, reading, chanting the glories of the Lord, one can easily develop love of God. That's why you have this famous quote by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, then immediately you will realize God. Immediately you will realize God. So it is like the sun. When Krishna went, it appeared like everything became dark, but then suddenly a sun rose. And this sun is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And who's the torch bearer of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Who's showing us the light? Who's the torch bearer? It is Vyasadeva and Narada who have recorded the Srimad Bhagavatam and given it to us. They have given it to us very, very mercifully. And just by being in contact with Srimad Bhagavatam, one can realize the ultimate goal of life very easily, and Krishna will be established in his heart. Okay, one will definitely get light from this Purana. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport he writes, just two books are enough, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. If you read these two books, of which is given to us by Srila Vyasadeva, he's the torch bearer, he's given it to us, and he has understood it through his spiritual master Narada Muni. If you understand these two, then you can be rest assured you will understand, or you can understand the ultimate purpose of life and catch a glimpse of who Krishna is through the mercy of our acharyas. And the torch bearer doesn't stop there. We have our entire Guru Parampara to back us up, to give us, throw more and more light on the Srimad Bhagavatam with various commentaries and various realizations. So the more we read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, what happens? Hridayam tasto hi abhadrani vidunoti sukrutsatam. All the contaminations in the heart is removed and one is established very, very firmly in devotional service and he realizes Krishna. So that is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So these were the 6 questions and the 6 brilliant answers given by Srila Sutta Goswami. But the sages didn't stop there. Once they heard these answers, they were extremely happy. They then wanted to know more about the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is when they began to ask these questions. They said, oh, this is wonderful. So it appears that the age of Kali, the ill effects of the age of Kali can be mitigated just with the Srimad Bhagavatam and chanting the holy names. So 2-point formula, read Srimad Bhagavatam, chant holy names. Right? Kali Yuga is taken care of. So this is the answer pretty much Sutta Goswami is telling. Shaunakadi rishis, they were so happy to hear this answer, and then they asked him to elaborate more. So they asked, when, where, and why was the Srimad Bhagavatam recited? From where did Shukadev's father, Krishna Dvaipayan Vyasadeva, get the inspiration to compile the Bhagavatam? After wandering about the earth like a naked madman, how was Shukadev Goswami recognized as the great sage? And how was he when he actually entered Hastinapura? How did Emperor Parikshit meet Sukadev Goswami? Why did wealthy and powerful Emperor Parikshit renounce his kingdom to fast to death on the bank of the river Ganges? Emperor Parikshit did not live to enjoy his wealth and power. He lived to give shelter to his subjects. So, why did he give up his body, which was the shelter for others? So, like this, they started shooting more and more questions, and the answers to these questions form the rest of chapter, rest of first canto, and then it flows into the second canto, the third canto, and so on, and the entire Bhagavatam is given to us. Okay, so this was the, it was like, touching the tip of the iceberg of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, any questions or comments? And please forgive me for all the mistakes. Yeah, we can stop the presentation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. Very wonderful class, Mataji. You have given a very nice class and explain everything. I remember these 3 verse is the main verse. You said Save Punsa Paro Dharma, then Krishnastu Bhagavan Sayam, and the last one that Bhagavan, right, the one which one you said, Lord Krishna, right, Krishna Dharmopagate, that verse. All these 3 verses describe all detail, and all your question which Sud Goswami has asked is very detailed. You have explained, Mataji. Thank you very much. And really I enjoy, and all the listener also enjoy. If anybody has a question, please unmute by yourself and ask the question to Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for this very wonderful opportunity.
Very nice,
and thank you for the very nice topic that was assigned. Thank you, Prabhu.
Mataji, I would like to thank you for the wonderful class as always, and for your time. Thank you so much, Mataji, for giving the class once again.
Thank you so much, Randa. Mataji, thanks for the very wonderful opportunity. It's always nice to connect with the devotees from Baltimore. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful lecture, Mataji.
Thank you. So someone asked for the presentation. I'll send it to Vrinda Mataji. Maybe she can forward it to you.
Is that Neela Madhav Prabhuji?
It says Shalini.
Yes, I think that's our temple president. I think Neela Madhav Prabhuji. So,
thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. No. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Oh, okay.
No, Mataji, not Neela Mataji's Prabhu's wife. I'm Shalini Tripathi.
I'm so sorry. I thought it was.
No, that's okay. People get confused. No, that's okay, Mataji.
Okay. Yeah, I will share it, Mataji.
Shall I give you my email ID? That would work, yes. Mataji?
Yes, sure, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Sorry.
No, that's okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, yes. If no other questions or anything comments, then
right.
With your permission, Mataji, shall we end the call?
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
All glories to the wonderful devotees of Baltimore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.